In the last 60 days, I've helped this law firm generate a 9x return on ad spend. I'm going to be breaking down exactly how we made that happen. It's going to be completely transparent, so I'm going to tell you what went well, what didn't go so well, and everything in between. So if and when you try this out for your firm, you'll know exactly the things to do and things to not do, things to avoid. By the way, my name is Josh Agapo, owner at Jam Systems. Over the last 3 years, we've built an acquisition system specifically for lawyers. We work on a results first basis, and we don't charge you a penny, we don't charge you a cent until we get you at least a 5x return on your ad spend. So if you're serious about growing your firm, you're in the right place, and let's get into it. Just to give you an overview of the campaign first. So this law firm, they're based down south in Greater London. They do a few different areas, but they wanted more immigration clients. We've had loads of experience with immigration, and obviously we can do well in this area. But one other thing to consider was it was very important for the client to do really, really well in the first 30 days. And that's normally the standard we set ourselves as well. But with immigration, there's obviously a bunch of different areas. So I wanted us to be quite picky with the areas that we were targeting. Most people, when they start a campaign, will think, okay, I'm doing immigration. Let me just bid for like immigration lawyer near me, for example. But what we find is those type of searches don't tend to be as high intent, and typically they're lower in value. So rather we focused on targeting higher value clients basically. And because they're higher value, it generally tends to mean that they're more serious about moving forward. So I'll just go through the way we broke things down. If you don't already know, we kind of work on a single keyword on a SCAG method. It's not a strict SCAG, but it basically means that one keyword theme per ad group. So you can see we have a bunch of different ad groups here. So when we first started, we ran the generic keywords. So immigration lawyer in phrase match and exact match. When we ran this, so you can see the cost per lead was £12, or pennies basically, right? And the conversion metrics are not completely accurate here, but it gives you an idea. Basically, I'll go through like exactly the figures we got later on. But yeah, what we found is that the client wasn't too happy with the leads that were coming through when it came to just immigration lawyers. So what we decided to do is figure out what areas pay the most, and what areas are the areas where people need something doing as soon as possible. So we obviously had a meeting with the client. The client said to us asylum, citizenship and naturalization, spousal stuff, appeals, deportations, and EU settlement schemes. Everything else was too generic. So this was too generic, and the rest of these were too generic. Not that we can't get good leads using this. We can get leads for days, do you know what I mean? But we want to get leads that ultimately turn into a paid client, because that's what we care about. No one gets paid from leads, everyone gets paid from someone signing. So that's kind of what we did after about 2 weeks of running the campaign. We spent a decent amount on the generic stuff, but then from there, we found that we were getting a lot of leads come through for asylum, citizenship, and so on and so forth. The whole point I'm trying to make with this is when you're building your campaign, you want to consider what area within the area you specialize in you want to focus on. Because as you probably know, there's probably sub niches within your specific niche. If you have a big enough budget, you might want to target every single area. If you're starting with a smaller budget, then you want to kind of pick and choose. And it's also important as well to use the keyword planner to see what the volume is like in the city or the state or the country you're going to be targeting. Okay. This is how we structured the campaign. Within the campaign itself, so if I just do asylum here, within each ad group, we have 2 ads. And what we try and do is we try to have the 2 ads competing against each other. And then whatever ad wins, we then replace it with another ad to try and beat the one that's winning. And the reason why we do this is because one of the most important things in running a successful Google campaign is having a high quality score. Some people see it as very important, and some people see it as not so important. I would say it's important in the sense that it's a good indication of where you're at. So your quality score is built up from your click-through rate, which is most of your quality score actually, your landing page experience, your website experience, and your ad relevance, those 3 things. Now, when you have a high quality score, you can actually afford to bid less for the same keywords because your rank on the Google auction is determined by quality score times your bid. So if we're bidding, this is just an example, obviously there's not a lot of search volume on this, but if we're bidding £3.50 and we have a 10 quality score, our ad rank will be 10 times 3.5, which is 35. But then if someone is bidding, let's say £6 and they have a 3 quality score, they would get a rank of 18, right? And obviously we're bidding like almost half of that and we're still getting the rank above them. So it's important in that sense. But then if you're willing to just outspend everyone, you can just not worry about it too much. But in most areas in law, you don't need to worry about getting a 10 out of 10. It's almost impossible to get a 10 out of 10. But if you're at a 7, you're going to be generally fine, especially like in a lot of competitive areas, like, personal injury, road traffic, whatever it might be. That's how we kind of broke down the campaign. Now, one thing we're big on as well is starting the campaign off with a massive list of negative keywords. So you want to not show for certain things. So doing your research beforehand to make sure that you have that comprehensive list. I'm talking 10, 15, 20,000 words here is kind of the best way to do it. Now, we also start the campaign off on manual bidding. A lot of people will just say the Google algorithm being the way it is, you can start off with like the automated bidding where you tell Google, you kind of take the reins. We don't like to do that because we want to get the most out of the smallest. With relying on Google to start off with, they can overspend because Google just wants you to spend. They do want you to obviously get results, but they don't really optimize for you getting results, if that makes sense. So that's why we stick to manual, and then after a few months we can then go to a fully automated bidding strategy. Now, one thing we implemented in the last, I want to say 2 weeks or so, is a performance max campaign. So with the performance max, it just means that we're utilizing everything we can do with Google. With a performance max campaign, your ads will now show on YouTube on the display as videos as well before like video plays. You'll show on any kind of websites that are affiliated with Google. You show on Google Maps, you show on Gmail as well. So it pushes out the ads essentially. It's a good way to kind of get top of the funnel traffic, if that makes sense. So then when they do search, if they don't convert straight away through the PMAX campaign, they'll see the ads and then there will be that sense of, oh, I've seen these guys before, and then they're more likely to convert. We've actually been doing, we're doing quite well there. So we've got a cost per lead at £7. Generally speaking, your lead quality won't be as good on this, but it's a volume game. What you can do is you can take all your negative keywords that you've got from your main campaign and add it into your negative keywords for your PMAX campaign. You improve the quality, because if you're not careful, you will get people calling for jobs, calling for the most randomest things, calling for other law firms, so you don't want that. That's enough waffling. So I'll go into the actual figures. So in the first 30 days, we spent £906. So we have like a monthly tracker. We started on the 17th of March and then we spent £906, a cost per lead of £11.78 and 77 leads. This is obviously good, right? But again, some of these leads were like the leads that were coming through the generic keywords. So the client wasn't actually closing. Now, to speak about a negative or something that didn't go so well is the client isn't really used to dealing with these type of leads. The client is very reliant on referrals, word of mouth and stuff like that. And when it comes to referrals and word of mouth, you don't realize how easy that initial conversation is because that person already has trust. And I think trust is a really big factor in being successful with advertising, because people don't know you, but they need to be able to trust you that you've got their best interest in heart and you're actually good at what you say you do. But then with a referral conversation, they already know that you're good because you've helped my friend. Someone's already vouched for you, so you don't even need to say too much. But with this, you need to come across as someone that's willing to help, someone that's willing to give the time, and someone that knows what they're doing. And people are, always very suspicious of contacting someone new, and they've got a whole list of people that they're going to be contacting. So you need to do your best to stand out. I'm sure the client won't mind me mentioning this, but the client wasn't very good or wasn't the best at conducting initial calls and taking consultation calls. But one thing about this client is they were very willing to learn, very willing to kind of take things on board. And I know it's not always an easy thing to do, especially because you feel like maybe the way you do things have always worked. But again, this is a different thing to referrals. We did a lot of work with this client in terms of like how to conduct the initial call, to book people in for consultation calls. We have a system where you can book a free consultation via Zoom or via just a general telephone call. There's certain things you do and certain things you say, knowing when to say it and knowing how to say it is very important. If the client had a better understanding of closing, of sales, of setting, we would have done a lot better. But even in the first month, we did get a 5x return. So we did, accomplish what we needed to do. But with 77 leads, the client should have easily closed about 10. Let me say 10, even with that. Now, in the second month, we stopped focusing on the easy keywords. So obviously the leads came down because we're focusing on more expensive keywords, but still we did quite well. 58 leads on £900-ish ad spend. So again, we're improving. So at this point, the client is obviously getting a good hang of conducting conversations, booking people in, and ways to build that trust very quickly and ways to kind of display their knowledge. Now, in the third month so far, so we're like a week in, the cost per lead is even lower than what it was in the second month. But bear in mind, we're still only targeting the specific keywords that the client knows is high value. Now, one thing I should add, in the Performance Max campaign, you can see that we're still only targeting the keywords that the client knows will convert well or that are high value. So even though our cost per lead has gone down, we're still targeting the areas that we know will do well on. That's kind of the breakdown of how things have gone. So again, the things that went well is obviously we built a campaign not optimizing for getting the most amount of leads, but optimizing for getting the most amount of cases, for getting the most amount of clients signed. And that comes down to segmenting everything. So when I do audits for law firms that kind of run their own campaigns, I see the campaign itself, and then they have one ad group called ad group 1, and then 1,000 keywords in that ad group. That's not the way you should do things. You need to properly segment everything, because then that allows you to write tailored ads to that specific thing. So if I had my spousal visas and deportation keywords in one ad group, the ad is going to look weird. It's going to be like, if someone is searching for deportation, it's going to be like, why are they talking about marriage? Why are they talking about this and that? So you have to be very specific. And then what we also do, you might already know if you've been watching any of the other case studies, is that for each of these ad groups, we have a particular landing page. So this has its own landing page, this has its own landing page. Again, from experience, we find that doing this increases conversion rates, because then you have that feeling of, I've just searched for this and this is exactly what I'm looking for. I've not seen other things talking about, other areas of immigration. This is exactly what I'm looking for. And obviously we build the page in such a way where we make it very easy, one click, to get in touch with a law firm, whether they want to call or whether they want to fill out the consultation form. So it's very straightforward. And then we have a bunch of automations on the back end. There's going to be a learning curve, but if it's something that you're considering yourself, you need to kind of realize that the way you do conversations with referrals is not going to be the same kind of way you do it with Google leads, because you're in competition with everyone else that's running Google ads, and you need to find a way to make sure you stand out. You need to find a way to make sure that you can build trust with that lead in a very short space of time. And that really comes from really trying to understand the person's issue and giving them time. We all know that your time is valuable, and they know as well, right? So if you give them the time with an attorney, not just like the paralegal or anyone else, they'll feel like, okay, these guys care, these guys know what they're doing, and then they're more likely to go with you. Following up with previous leads that have come in, essentially having a good system in place. So if you don't already have that in place, Google ads might not be smooth sailing. At least so you can prepare for that essentially. For the back end itself, the system we use, we have a CRM here. As soon as the leads come in, they receive a text to let them know that someone's going to be in touch. One thing I can probably give away that you guys might benefit from is when they call in and no one answers, or when they fill out a contact form, they receive a message. But in that message, we also link back to the Google reviews of the firm, because we know that, let's say the lawyer doesn't get back within, let's say 2 hours, they might go find someone else. But because we send a link to go back to the reviews, they'll hopefully click on their phone, go to the reviews and actually see that, okay, these guys are very good at what they do. They've got so many 5-star reviews. So even if they have a conversation in that time, they kind of remember us that much more. When the attorney gets in touch, when the lawyer gets in touch, they're going to be responsive. So that's just a thing that you can implement. And then after the conversation, another text goes out as well to say, if you ever need to contact us again, you can always reach us in this number. We're big on sending out text messages, emails to both the potential client, to potential case, and also to the lawyer as well, to the firm. So nothing gets missed essentially, because obviously we don't want to reveal any kind of sensitive information. I'm not going to show you the contacts that have come in. This is a general overview. We don't track conversion rates here. We don't track opportunity value here. All we track is just the leads that have come in. And then we get the data from the client in terms of how many have closed essentially. So we conduct weekly meetings, and we do weekly trainings as well to kind of see where we're at, to make sure that we're improving. So typically we track everything here. We have a weekly report, we have a monthly report, and we build up the campaign here as well. So everything is done here. So that's pretty much everything. If this is something that you want to do for yourself, we do work on a results first basis. And if you're serious about scaling your firm, please do reach out and have a conversation. We don't charge you anything until we get you a 5x return on ad spend. I really believe in getting results first, because I know that in this world of marketing, there's a lot of big promises and no follow through essentially. But what we do is we say, scratch all of that. Let's actually get you not just leads. Let's get cases signed. Let's get money in the bank, so you have that trust to actually move forward. That's everything I think that is relevant for this case study. If there's anything I've not touched on that you want me to explain, if there's anything I've gone through too quickly, I know I've not touched on the landing pages, because on the other case studies, I go through kind of the way our landing pages look. So we kind of follow the same kind of structure there. If there's anything else you need me to explain a little bit more, drop a comment, drop me a message, and I can go through that definitely. Other than that, thank you so much for your time today, and all the best. Take care.